Today we will continue our introduction to 16th notes by looking at the second 8 combinations of them. All right, then we'll continue looking at our minor 7th chords, including, remember, we're thinking in the Dorian mode right now. And then we're going to have a piano dojo first today. We'll be looking at a piece I wrote called Bossabilities. But before we get into that, let's head over to the drum and check out the second 8 combinations of 16th notes. Let's take a look at our second group of 16th note patterns today. Now there's going to be 8 of these because there are 16 total, all right? And we will actually be starting with number 10. Because as we can see, number 9, which is technically a group of 16th notes, right, is merely the downbeat and the upbeat, and we don't need to review that, all right? So we'll be looking at number 10 today. Now this one is really cool. I love this pattern because what it really is if you think about playing both the E and the but no downbeat and upbeat, what you get is the same value as an 8th note, the same value as a 1 and 2 and, but we're shifted over. And so you can get some pretty cool feelings out of this. Now again, we're going to start by saying and playing each one of these, and then we'll be adding the metronome in, okay? So let's look at number 10. We're going to say and we're going to play it. And again, we're going to want to think of each of these E's and U's as either a rebound or an anticipation. Let's go ahead and try number 10. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. All right, so you're going to want to take as much time as you need to feel comfortable with that. I'm moving along today because we have limited time here, but we'll now add the metronome, okay? So our metronome is going to be at 45 BPM. It's going to represent the upbeats. We will count the downbeats, we will play the rhythm, and then we will hear the metronome on the upbeats. Here's number 10. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's move on to number 11. We are now moving into 3-note combinations, which in my opinion are very easy. If you take a look at number 11, you get an anticipation and a rebound, where the E is rebounding off of the downbeat and then immediately anticipating the upbeat. Let's practice playing and saying this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and, right? And in a way, it's almost like you can let the sticks bounce, or if you're clapping it or patting it, you can let your hands bounce and let gravity do the work of this, all right? Let's try it with the metronome at 45 BPM on the upbeats. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E, 2 E, 3 E, 4 E, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's take a look at number 12. Now we're just going to be scooting everything over, all right? So we're going to be anticipating the upbeat and then immediately rebounding off of it. Let's try saying and playing that. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Let's try it with the metronome. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fantastic. Looking at number 13, we have the 1 and a. Now number 13 and number 11 can get mixed up a lot sometimes, okay? And so when we start actually working these into our two-handed workouts like we normally do, we're going to see that a lot of times there's going to be some discrepancies when we see number 11s and number 13s put right next to each other because they look so similar, but they mean something very different. In the case of number 13, we have the 1 and a, okay? And if you think about how that connects to the beat next to it, we have the downbeat, of course, where we start, and then we have the upbeat on the and, so we have a rebound off of the and, but then that anticipates the next downbeat, right? So it doesn't look like a group of 3, but once you get the pattern going, you'll notice that it is a group of 3. Let's practice saying and playing that. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that, okay? Let's try it with the metronome. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Fantastic. All right, when we look at number 14, this is a very special rhythm because this is a very important rhythm to the genre of ragtime, all right? Here, what we have is the anticipating the downbeat and then the downbeat rebounding onto an E. Now, it also starts a little bit off, not right in that pattern, but once you get the pattern going, it is a very satisfying syncopated feeling, which is why this was used so widely in ragtime. So let's practice saying and playing number 14. 1 E, 2 E, 3 E, 4 E, 1, 2, 3, 4. And don't forget that at the end there, okay? Let's try it with the metronome now. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E, 2 E, 3 E, 4 E. 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't forget that last E, okay? Now number 15 is pretty obvious. It's the only 4-note combination we have, but we don't want to forget about this. Or if you look at number 16, which we won't bother with today either, is that these are actually some of the most difficult combinations for people to do, okay? So the thing is that sometimes we get too good at all of these different syncopations, and when it's actually something very easy like quarter note rests or 4/16 notes in a row, we want to be doing something fancy and we end up overthinking it. And so we can never forget that sometimes we simply just need to play 4/16 notes in a row or rest 4 times. Now we will go over number 15. Let's practice playing and saying. 15. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1, 2, 3, 4. There we have it. And we will put it with the metronome. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Excellent. Now that we're all warmed up, let's head back to the piano. Today we will be continuing our minor 7th journey with A minor 7, E minor 7, and B minor 7. Remember, this is flat 3rd and flat 7th. Let's take a look at these on the keyboard. Let's start with A minor 7. We'll do the inversions in the right hand. Let's take a look at those with our left hand. Let's do one chord, both of our hands. And then let's think A Dorian. So A is the re of G, and the G major scale has one sharp, which is F sharp. So we're going to keep that key, but we're going to play it from A to A with our chord in our left hand. Let's switch it up here. Excellent. Let's take a look at E minor 7. So this is going to be the inversions with our right hand first. Left hand inversions. And let's do one chord hands together. Now let's think E Dorian. So E is the re of D major. D major has two sharps, which is F sharp and C sharp. So we will play that same key, but starting from E, and join that with the chord in our left hand. And we'll switch that up. And finally, that leaves us with B minor. Let's try that with our right hand inversions first. Let's try our left hand inversions. Let's put both of our hands together for one chord. And now, let's think B Dorian. So B is the re of A. A has three sharps, C sharp, and F sharp, and G sharp. So we'll play that same key, but between B and B. Let's give it a try with the chord in our left hand. And switch it around. Let's talk about today's piece, Bossabilities. Now, this is actually more of an etude because it's really just demonstrating some basic concepts, such as the connection between the minor 2 and the minor 7 sound, the connection between the 2/7 and the 5/7, and then also some very basic bossa nova techniques and piano stylings. All right. So first, let's take a look at how we are in the key of A. All right, so we have three sharps, and we can see that we are starting out with a lot of B minor 7ths. And we might say, well, what exactly is B minor 7th doing in this key? Well, we know from the chords that we were just inverting that B minor 7 is the second scale degree of A, B, right? And when we want to build that second chord into something a little bit more than a minor triad, we add that flat 7 to it and we get a minor 7. So a lot of times when you get a little bit spicier chord in a key and it's built off of the second scale degree, you're going to get that 2 minor 7, all right? Now, as you can also see, we're flip-flopping back and forth from the 2 to the 5, and that is because the 2 and the 5 really are a dynamic duo over there on the dominant side of the harmonic spectrum, right? 2 is probably the most famous, what we would call the predominant, right? The thing that comes just before the dominant is almost always the 2, and that's not just because someone said so. As we're going to see when we dive into the piano stylings of the bossa nova, there are connections there, right? We know that B, E, and A are all adjacent to each other on the circle of fifths, so the root motion is very pleasant for us to hear. But also there are other connections that we're going to see in just a little bit when we dive a little deeper into the actual notes, okay? Now finally, we do flip-flop from our 2-5 into an A, all right? And what we're going to see is, because this is an etude and it is really demonstrating 2-5-1, we are going to see 2-5-1 going to a few different places. So what I've done here is I've done what we call making a chain of 2-5-1s, right? So the first example of the 2-5-1 that I did was sort of this flip-floppy thing, where you can sort of loop a 2 and a 5 and loop it over and over, like we're doing here, until finally you decide to resolve that, which hopefully you do, right? Have mercy on your audience and please resolve the tensions that you create musically, right? And so here we resolved that. So that was one shape of 2-5-1. But as we'll see, you can also move through keys by creating chains of 2-5-1. So what we can see here is that we quickly go from A minor to D7, and if we think in our heads, A is the 2 of G, D is the 5 of G, so we're kind of heading towards G. But when we arrive at the G, we immediately convert that into another 2-5-1, right? And so we have the G and the C and the C7, and then the G, and then surprise, we need to get back, right? So how did we find our way back from a G minor and a C7, which should technically take us to F, right? But instead, we found ourselves on the F sharp 7. And we've done this before. What this is called is the tritone substitution. A C7 and an F sharp 7 are exactly opposite from each other on the circle, and therefore we know that they are tritones. And you can substitute a chord, a tritone, away, and what that does is, first of all, between the G and the F sharp, it gives us a nice little half step, right? A nice little half step bass line right there. But also, the F7 just so happens to be the 5 of our original 2, 5 to the 1, okay? Right? So I hope your head isn't spinning too much. What we did is first we started a new chain of 2-5-1s by transforming the A major, where we had originally arrived, into an A minor. We then used the A minor to create a 2-5-1 to the key of G, which we immediately turned into a 2-5-1 until we substituted out the C7 with its own tritone, which is F sharp 7. And then that allowed us to return to B minor 7 and E7, which eventually brings us home to A major, right? So, you know, creating these chains of 2-5-1s, it might seem like a lot of theory at first, but, you know, jazz and so many different types of music are so 2-5-1 based that once you start getting used to seeing these progressions, the way that they spin around like that and can take you around the circle and then shoot you right back to where you started is pretty normal. Let's take a look at the bossa nova piano stylings. Let's talk about how this basic bossa nova piano technique takes advantage of the connections between the 2 and the 5, all right? So we're going to be starting with the flat 7 of our B minor 7, the flat 3rd, and the 5th, right? Now, all we have to do to transform this chord into an E7 is to let our thumb drop by a half step to the G sharp, all right? Now that F sharp is going to stay common between both of them, although it's functioning as what we call the 9 in our E7 chord, okay? And not to go down that rabbit hole right now, I will put a link in the description of this video about 9s, and we will talk about 9s. It's just a pretty extension that accentuates the sound, but we are going to see some 9s throughout this piece because, you know, bossa nova is a beautiful style, and those 9s really go well. So what we have here is we're going back and forth between these two chords with only having to change one half step. And then you add a little syncopation with that rhythm there, and we get this. Right? Now this voicing, this E dominant 7th with that 9 on top, transforms very nicely to the A major 7 by closing in like this. Now you'll notice that in our A major 7, we are going to be adding a B, and we are in the, our thumb is going to be going down to F sharp. It doesn't change the sound too much, it accentuates it, right? And we get this nice little, right? Exactly. Then, when we transform our A major 7 chord into a minor chord, we are basically going to be repeating this pattern. So now, just like we did in the B minor 7, we're going to start on the flat 7 of A minor, which is G. And then all you have to do to get to D7 is lower your thumb to F sharp. And there we have the 3, flat 7, and 9 of our D7, right? So then you just rock back and forth in the same way that you did between B and E, but now we're doing it between A and D. And then, lo and behold, we do the same thing with our G minor 7. We have the flat 7, the flat 3, and the 5, and then we only change one note by a half step to get to the C7. Although, when we get to our tritone substitution to our F sharp, we do go down to the E, but now we're going to have C sharp, A sharp, because we are playing technically an F sharp 7 chord here. And then that's going to allow us to get back to B minor, okay? So we have this very easy pattern, this very rocking, syncopated pattern that is based off of the flat 7 of the minor 2, and then that flat 7 lowers to the 3rd of the dominant 7th chord that it's next to. Okay? Now this, the bass is actually doing something very simple. We're just playing the downbeats, the 1st and the 3rd downbeats, but we do have a little bit of what we call an anticipation, right? We know all about anticipations, and in Latin music, it's very important that every now and then your bass anticipates a strong beat. So in this case, every 2 measures, we're gonna have a little syncopated bass line where we anticipate the downbeat. But for the most part, we're just going to be playing roots in our bass, which is a good thing, right? Because we don't have any roots in these voicings. And this is something that we're going to see more and more, and you're going to see more and more as you become a more advanced musician, is that you typically will leave roots out of the voicings that you use in your right hand, because a lot of times the bass is controlling those roots, and you don't need to be redundant by adding the roots into the voicings that you're playing. Now, in order to return, all right, to our A minor 7, or I'm sorry, our A major 7, we have sort of this little cadenza section right here, okay? And hopefully the fermatas are enough of a warning to get you slowed down, right? Those are fermatas, and they mean to just dramatically pause on those notes. And then in between these 2 measures, I wrote freely, cadenza-like. This is a chance to show off your awesome modes, right? And so we have a very basic voicing. We have the root and the flat 7, which we saw last lesson. And then we have a very basic do and so voicing here in our left hand. And guess what? Let's show off that mode work we've been doing here. So what we have is we have a descending B Dorian scale, and then we also have a descending E Mixolydian scale, when all you really need to be thinking though is that we're playing A major starting on B, and then we're going to play A major starting on E, and then finally that's going to bring us back to A major. Let's go ahead and try this piece out on the piano. If you enjoyed that music, you can always find it for sale on my website, pianodojo.com. Next week, we will be doing our last intro to 16th notes, where we will take a look at all 16 combinations together, and then we will be working them into our usual two-handed rhythm warm-ups, all right? And continuing our minor 7th exploration. So until next time, happy practicing.